All right, let's jump into this deep dive. We're looking at the language of influence today. And we've got some clips from a training seminar that claims basically they can turn anyone into a master communicator. So
Yeah.
imagine being able to, kind of subtly guide people towards doing what you want them to do. It's all through the power of language. And we're going to be breaking down some specific patterns, techniques, even how your voice can influence people. This is where things get interesting.
What's interesting is they really get right into the application of this stuff. It's not just theory. They're giving you actual tools to use in everyday life.
So let's dive right in then. One of the first things that stood out to me was this concept of presupposition. So can you break that down a little bit?
So presupposition is basically a way to subtly influence someone's thinking by kind of baking in assumptions into the language you use. For example, the seminar leader uses this phrase, in 6 months from now, when you're looking back on today and starting to see all the progress that you've made, it kind of forces the listener to accept the idea that they will be making progress.
Yeah, it's like you're setting them up to succeed just by the way you phrase things. And it makes you wonder how often we encounter this without even realizing it.
Oh, it's everywhere. Think about advertising slogans, political speeches. They're often using presupposition to shape our perceptions.
That's kind of scary when you think about it. So how do we actually start using these techniques? Does the seminar give any practical advice?
Yeah, they do. One method they recommend is like a card of the day technique. So you choose a specific language pattern you want to work on, write it down, and then you try to consciously incorporate that into your emails and conversations throughout the day.
So repetition, making it a habit.
Exactly. And they emphasize this thing called unconscious language generation.
Mhm.
Basically, with enough practice, these patterns can become so ingrained that you just use them effortlessly without even thinking about it.
Hmm.
You're training your brain to be a more effective communicator on autopilot, basically.
That's a pretty powerful concept. All right, got to hear about this butt flip technique. The
Mm.
name alone is just like intriguing.
So it's a clever way to handle objections. Someone says, for instance, I'd love to have dinner tonight, but I already went out to dinner last night. So the butt flip, you just changed the order. So you had dinner last night, but you'd really like to come out to dinner with me tonight.
Ah, so you're emphasizing their desire rather than the objection. Pretty slick.
And the seminar leader explains that the word but tends to just negate whatever came before it. So you can actually use that strategically to downplay the negative and highlight the positive.
Yeah, and that's applicable to so many situations, not just, trying to convince someone to go to dinner with you, but, negotiations, sales pitches, even just like getting your friend to try a new restaurant.
It's a game changer, this butt flip.
This is already packed with useful stuff. We're just getting started. Things take a really interesting turn when the seminar starts talking about embedded commands.
Yeah, embedded commands. These are like subtle suggestions hidden within seemingly normal sentences. And the seminar leader actually demonstrates this live. He keeps repeating the phrase, you're unconscious, to the audience, with a specific tone of voice and even using these pointed gestures.
Wow, that's pretty bold. I'm curious how the audience reacted to that.
Apparently, it was quite effective.
Yeah.
There was one participant who was particularly receptive to the suggestion, and they started to like zone out or blip out, as they call it in the seminar. And it kind of demonstrates how these techniques can work on both a conscious and unconscious level, right?
Even if someone is aware of the embedded command, their unconscious mind is still picking up on it. That's a little mind-boggling.
Yeah, it makes you realize just how much of communication is happening below the surface, right?
So we've got presupposition, the butt flip, embedded commands, all pretty potent stuff. What else does this seminar cover?
Well, then they get into matching and leading with states, which is basically tuning into someone's emotional state to build rapport and subtly influence them.
So it's like mirroring someone's body language, tone of voice to kind of create that connection, right? But then how do you lead them from there?
Well, once you've established rapport, then you can gradually guide them towards a different state by subtly shifting your own behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, let's say someone is feeling anxious. You might initially match their anxious energy and then slowly start to project a more calm and confident demeanor.
It's like saying, I understand where you are, but let's move towards this like better feeling place together, right?
And they emphasize that emotions are contagious. So the fastest way to get someone into a certain state is to genuinely embody that state yourself.
Interesting. So if I want to inspire confidence in someone, I actually need to be exuding confidence myself. It's not just about the words, but the energy behind them.
Exactly. It makes you wonder about the ethics of all this, though, right?
Mm.
Where's that line between positive influence and manipulation?
That's a great question. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are thinking the same thing. Did the seminar address the ethical use of these techniques, especially when dealing with difficult people?
They did touch upon it, particularly when it comes to handling, say, aggressive individuals or depressed individuals. And the advice was actually kind of varied.
So let's start with aggression.
Mm.
What's their take on dealing with someone who's being, confrontational, hostile?
The seminar leader actually shared an anecdote about confronting, like, a wall puncher, someone who's known for their anger issues.
Hmm.
And his approach was interesting. He actually matched the person's energy level. And surprisingly, it diffused the situation.
That seems counterintuitive. I would think you'd want to de-escalate things.
That's the key, right? Matching their energy, not their anger. The goal is to establish that unconscious connection and then gradually bring the energy down, acknowledging their state without getting sucked into their negativity.
Interesting. So what about the opposite end of the spectrum, dealing with, say, someone who's depressed?
That was interesting. The seminar leader's personal ache was to just avoid them altogether.
Hmm.
His reasoning was that constantly engaging with depressed individuals could negatively impact his own mood and energy levels.
Pretty straightforward approach. There was also that technique they mentioned, crossover matching, as a way to build rapport with someone who's depressed without taking on their negative state.
Right, so instead of mirroring their emotional state, you mirror a different aspect of their behavior. So
Hmm.
maybe like matching your voice pace to their breathing rhythm, creating that subtle connection without actually having to mirror their emotional state directly.
Yeah, finding that point of connection without having to completely immerse yourself in their emotional world.
Exactly. And it allows you to be present and supportive without sacrificing your own well-being, right?
So we've covered a lot of ground here. This deep dive is definitely living up to its name. What really ties all these techniques together, though?
They really emphasize the importance of assuming positive intent.
So giving people the benefit of the doubt.
More about recognizing that everyone is operating from their own unique perspective, their own set of beliefs and experiences. Even if someone's behavior seems unreasonable or hurtful, it's likely driven by some underlying need or goal that makes sense to them, right?
So instead of judging their behavior, trying to understand their motivation.
Exactly. And by seeking that understanding, you can often find more compassionate and effective ways to communicate and resolve conflicts, right? And this kind of leads into a powerful communication model. They introduce nonviolent communication.
Remind me how that works again.
It's a four-part statement, basically. So first, you describe the other person's behavior, but focusing on specific actions. Then you state how that behavior makes you feel, using I statements. And then you explain the reason behind your feeling, connecting it back to a need or a value. And finally, you make a clear request for what you'd like them to do differently.
A way to express yourself honestly while minimizing defensiveness and promoting understanding.
And they actually shared an example of how this model could be used by someone who was struggling with a very demanding senior person at work.
Wow, we've covered so much already, from, sneaky linguistic tactics to deep emotional states. What else did they explore in this fascinating world of the language of influence?
One of the most memorable takeaways, I'd say, is the focus on the power of voice tone.
Makes sense, right? How you say something is just as important as what you say. But I'm curious how they explored this concept in the seminar.
Well, they actually shared a study that linked the attractiveness of someone's voice to the number of romantic partners they had.
Really? So a captivating voice can actually impact your love life?
Apparently so.
Hmm.
The study found that it was a stronger predictor of romantic success than physical attractiveness, which is pretty wild.
That's both funny and fascinating. I wonder what other, less obvious ways voice tone might influence how people perceive us.
Right, and they emphasize that voice tone is a powerful tool for creating connection, building rapport, and even inducing trance-like states. The seminar leader even shared an anecdote about being put into a trance by a top salesperson with an incredibly compelling voice.
So it's not just the words themselves, but almost like the music behind them. This seminar is making me rethink everything from, how I phrase my sentences to the subtle nuances of my own voice tone.
Yeah, it's a deep dive into this often hidden world influence, right, revealing this incredible power we have to shape our communication and impact those around us.
And this is just the beginning. There's so much more to explore.
So yeah, it's not just about, using your voice to attract a partner, although, hey, that's not a bad thing. But it's really understanding how all the subtleties of our voice, like the pitch, the pace, even the way we breathe, can really impact how our message comes across.
It's almost like learning a musical instrument, right? A skilled musician can like evoke a whole range of emotions just by changing how they play a note.
Exactly. And a master communicator can do the same with their voice.
So did this seminar offer any like specific exercises or practices for developing a more impactful voice tone?
They did, yeah.
Mm.
There's one in particular that focuses on connecting your emotional state to your voice.
That sounds intriguing. How did
Well,
that work?
okay, so the seminar leader has the participants choose, like, a feeling or a state of mind they enjoy. So confidence, freedom, enthusiasm, whatever resonates with them. And then he has them say a word, any word, as if they were actually experiencing that state.
So it's about like embodying the feeling in the way you say it, not just, saying the word itself.
Right, it's about squeezing the juice out of the word, as
Mm.
they put it, making it sound and feel like the emotion itself. And they even have people, like, crank it up to a 10, then 100, using their voice, their body language, everything they've got to really embody that state.
I can imagine that creates a powerful shift in the room. Do they talk about how different voice tones could actually like affect the listener?
Yeah, the seminar leader pointed out that, saying the word confidence in a weak, hesitant voice is going to have a completely different effect than saying it with strength and conviction.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
like the difference between hearing a motivational speaker who actually believes what they're saying and one who's just going through the motions. One will energize you, the other one will put you to sleep.
The point is, communication isn't just about the words themselves, it's the whole package. The voice, the body language, the energy, the presence. It's turning those words into an experience that really resonates with others on a deeper level.
I love that. This seminar is really opening my eyes to how much more is going on in communication than we often realize.
Absolutely. And speaking of, like, simple but powerful techniques, they shared this little exercise that involves different parts of your body.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So they have everyone touch their nose and say, this is my nose, then their mouth, this is my mouth, and so on, moving down to their throat, their chest, their belly.
Seems kind of like a kindergarten game. What's the point of that?
When they reach their belly, they say, and if I speak from here, all sorts of wonderful things will happen.
So, just by shifting your focus to speaking from your belly, you can actually improve your communication.
That's the idea. It's about connecting to your core, where your voice can resonate with more power and authenticity.
It's almost like grounding your voice in your physical presence. Makes a lot of sense.
It's a small adjustment, but it can make a big difference in how you sound and how your message is received.
So, we're seeing all these simple but effective strategies coming out of the seminar. Did they talk about how to apply these techniques in more like specific situations, like say sales or negotiations?
They did, yeah. The seminar leader actually told a story about how he used a combination of, like, matching energy and nonviolent communication to de-escalate a tense situation with a very aggressive individual.
Oh, right, that wall puncher you mentioned
Right.
earlier.
Yeah, this guy was known for his temper. He'd even, like, punched holes in his office wall. So when the seminar leader needed to have a difficult conversation with him, he knew it could get out of hand pretty quickly.
That sounds stressful. What did he do?
Instead of, backing down or trying to reason with the guy, he actually matched his energy level and used similar language.
That seems risky. Meeting aggression with aggression.
It does, but it's about matching the energy, not mirroring the anger. So by doing that, he kind of created this unconscious connection that allowed him to de-escalate the situation and actually have a productive conversation.
So he disrupted the expected pattern and opened up a space for something different to happen.
Exactly. And it just highlights how important it is to be adaptable and know which communication style will be most effective in different situations.
And the seminar really emphasized practice as the key to mastering all these techniques, right?
Oh, absolutely. They even suggest, like, using these in everyday conversations as a way to hone your skills and become more, persuasive, influential.
It's like turning your life into a communication laboratory.
Exactly. And as you experiment with these techniques, you'll start to notice how they can transform your interactions, from casual conversations to, high-stakes negotiations.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener. It's not about, manipulating people or being sneaky. It's about really shifting your whole mindset towards communication and recognizing this power we have to influence the world around us.
Yeah, it's about treating communication as an art, you know, this constantly evolving process of discovery and refinement.
And there's always room for improvement. It's a lifelong journey, right? Learning and refining our communication skills. What's one thing you're going to be taking away from this deep dive?
For me, it's that reminder that communication is about creating experiences, not just transmitting information.
Mm.
We can use our words to evoke emotions and really make a difference in the world around us.
That's a powerful insight. For me, the big takeaway is that influence isn't some like manipulative
Yeah.
tactic. It's just a natural part of human interaction, right? We're all influencing each other all the time. And by understanding the techniques of the language of influence, we can become more conscious and skillful communicators, which helps us build better relationships in all areas of our lives.
And use that influence to connect with others authentically and make a positive impact.
That's what it's all about. Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive. Welcome back. As we wrap up this deep dive into the language of influence, I'm really struck by how practical this seminar is. It's not just like theory, right? They're giving you these actual tools that you can use to improve your communication.
Yeah, it's almost like they're handing you a decoder ring to understand all these subtle influences that are happening in our everyday interactions. And they really emphasize that, true mastery comes from integrating these techniques into your unconscious confidence.
Unconscious competence. Can you explain what that means?
So think about when you first learned to drive, for example. You had to consciously think about every single step, right? Checking your mirrors, shifting gears. It was awkward. It was clunky.
Oh, I definitely remember stalling out a few times.
But with practice, those actions become automatic. You can focus on the road, enjoy the scenery, while your unconscious mind is handling all the mechanics of driving. And mastering the language of influence is kind of similar, right? You reach this point where you can navigate these complex communication situations with ease, and these subtle techniques just flow effortlessly without you even thinking about it.
So you're operating on like a higher level of communication almost, where you can focus on building those relationships, achieving your goals, rather than getting bogged down in the mechanics.
Exactly. It's about fluency. It's about letting go of that conscious effort.
This seminar is really eye-opening. It's not about manipulating people or being sneaky. It's about understanding this power of human communication and using it to create these like positive, meaningful interactions.
It's recognizing that communication is this intricate dance, right? This dance of words and emotions, energy, intention.
Mhm.
And by understanding the steps, we can all become more skillful partners in that dance.
And there's always room for improvement, right? It's a lifelong journey of learning and refining our communication skills. What's one thing you're taking away from this deep dive?
For me, it's that reminder that communication is about creating experiences. It's not just about transmitting information. We can use our words to evoke emotions and really make a difference in the world around us.
That's a powerful insight. For me, I think the big takeaway is that influence isn't some manipulative tactic. It's a natural part of human interaction.
Mhm.
We're all influencing each other all the time, right? And by understanding these techniques, the techniques of the language of influence, we can become more conscious, more skillful communicators, which helps us build better relationships in all areas of our
And
lives.
use that influence to connect with others authentically and make a positive impact.
That's what it's all about. Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the language of influence. But before we go, we want to leave you with something to ponder. If you could choose one aspect of your communication style to enhance, what would it be and why? Keep exploring, keep refining those communication skills, and until next time, keep diving deep.